Welcome back. This is Court TV Live, and I'm Cody Thomas. Now, this hour, we're following action in two courtrooms in Michigan, where sentencing rolls on for Ricardo Castillo. The 25-year-old former Marine recruiter is set to learn his fate after pleading no contest to charges related to a 2024 home invasion, which included a knife attack on an 11-year-old girl. Now, the judge has ordered us to play out the sentence once it finishes, so we'll be monitoring that throughout the morning. Now, we begin in Massachusetts for a pre-trial hearing for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. The former police officer is accused of assault with a dangerous weapon. This comes after a fellow officer claimed she pulled a gun on him while serving her with a restraining order from her fiancé. Let's get you right back in that courtroom now.
The home address of the defendant or Mass General Law.
And your objection to that is?
The firefighters are not part of the prosecution team. If they're not in care, custody, control.
Yeah. I mean, you can file a Rule 17 for that, Mr.
Very good, Your Honor. That's perfectly
Bradle.
fine.
I think that's right. What else, Mr. Gubitosi? Anything else in this motion?
Number 9.
Yep.
All statements, including text, emails, voicemails, writings of like between or among any civilian witnesses, police or prosecutors. I would just say it's overbroad.
Yeah. How, Mr. Bradle, how can the Commonwealth produce messages between people who are not, civilian witnesses?
Sure, I understand, Your Honor. The request should be really a little narrower, I suppose, which is whenever there's a police prosecution team member in the conversation, then
that's
it
different.
should be
I agree.
discoverable.
Right.
So
Statements, Mr. Gubitosi, of people who are...
For statements that
yeah.
I'm obligated to provide in Rule
Yeah.
13, absolutely.
Okay.
I agree with that,
Okay.
but not that.
and just, oh, sorry, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Counsel.
No, I was moving on.
Just one thing on that before you move on, Your Honor, is
Yes,
that,
sure.
it's our view, we viewed on the security video from the scene that officers are texting and calling all over the place at the scene, quite understandably.
Sure.
But we just want the text messages, and we have information that there were communications between the father of the child and the police officers leading up to serving this warrant, leaving up the restraining order, rather, serving the restraining order, leading up to that. And there are communications that are between the father and the police that we want.
Well, if
which would
any
certainly
of those
be statements.
materials that are in the possession, custody, or control of the Commonwealth or the North Andover Police Department need to be produced. I can't... it's a little bit broad in the sense that, if there are people texting that the Commonwealth doesn't know about.
I agree, Judge. I don't even want to. Yeah, I can cut to the chase on that.
Let me suggest
that involve
something
the police and prosecution team
here. I'm well aware of the fact that there's some discovery issues here, but they don't seem insurmountable to me, and they seem like something that could be worked out. The defendant's in custody. You are and have, as is your right, litigating the issue of her detention. And my solution to that, it's not my decision one way or the other, but it's in front of the SJC. But I feel that this is the type of case that is tried in the district court every day. It's a serious case. All cases are serious, but it's not complicated. And I want to set a trial date sometime early next year, and we'll get another discovery compliance date in a few weeks. Mr. Gubitosi starting a trial December 1st. So maybe in late December we can have another compliance date if it works for everybody to try to iron these things out, because, it's she is in custody. I'm cognizant of that. And so my solution, whenever, and we deal with this all the time, we spend sometimes more time dealing with the issues of pretrial conditions and release. And in the time we spend doing that, we could try the case. So this case looks to me, and I could be wrong, that it could be tried in a couple of days. And she's in custody. So if the case is tried and she's found not guilty, that's the end of it. If the case is tried and she's found guilty, that's a whole other issue. But the fairest thing, it seems to me, is to try the case as promptly as we can. So before your schedules get any more backed up, I want to set a trial date. We can always revisit it, but what about sometime in late January, February?
That's very fair, Your Honor, and I appreciate you saying that. And I wanted to ask maybe the first week of February.
Sure. Mr. Gubitosi, how's that work for you?
I have a murder starting on the 26th of January, so if we can go to, I could do this the week of the 9th.
Okay.
That's fine.
Does that work for you, Mr. Braden?
Yes.
Ms. Attorney Coakley?
Always with the caveat that I haven't checked with any witnesses.
Of course.
Sure.
And but this way we have a target date. Everybody can check with their witnesses. We can find out and iron that problem out now. And if there's somebody who needs an adjustment for a few days, a week, one way or the other, we can work on that. But the longer we wait to do it, the more backed up we get. And again, we're going to prioritize this case. She's in custody. Maybe she will be at that time. Maybe not. I don't know. But at best, for your client, she's going to be on restrictive conditions, and that's a factor as well. So let's get a trial date now. Let's shoot for that. We'll schedule it for trial on February 9th. I think that's very reasonable. And let's set another discovery compliance date that everybody can live with. Sometime in December. Mr. Gubitosi, you expect to be tied up for a couple of weeks?
Yep, I think I can, the week of the 15th, I should be.
Okay.
I was going to ask for maybe the 18th along those lines. I think we're in the same process.
We can do that, sure. We'll do the 18th. And my purpose that day...
Sorry, Judge, just a calendar issue, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Judge, 18 is a tough day, it turns out. Could we do the 19th?
I'll do it.
Okay.
If Mr. Gubitosi is available. Okay. We'll do it. Now, and I want you to have a conference, which I know you will, to see if you can work these things out or to refine or narrow the motion. And we'll revisit those things that day. I have a Zoom that's coming from a different Norfolk that we have to get to right now. So it's either that or we get together late this afternoon.
Perfectly fine, Your Honor.
Okay.
I think we can resolve much of the rest of it.
Now, as far as your request, the last thing I'm going to cover is your request regarding transportation of the defendant. I allowed it today. I'm going to do it on a date-by-date basis. I mean, if the next date is discovery motions, I don't think that it's necessary to transport her. If you want us to try to do a Zoom, we'll attempt to do it. But the goal here, again, in fairness to the defendant and everyone else, is to get the case tried promptly. So we'll have a hearing that day. I'll try to, or me or someone will iron out all of these issues if we can, and let's keep moving. I don't expect, it doesn't sound like you intend to litigate a motion to suppress in this case.
Correct, Your Honor.
So that removes one common obstacle to getting this done. So working with that, I think everybody's being reasonable in terms of time. Why don't you have a further conference, exchange written responses so that there's, down the road, there's no misinterpretation. And let's see each other again in a few weeks. And I'll order a Zoom, Habe, if we can do that. Okay? All right.
I think that'll be fine. If there's any issue, we'll file appropriate papers.
And if you have a narrower motion or you can narrow the issues, file another motion, and I'll make sure that I get a look at it or somebody will.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Have a great holiday. All right.
Thank you. Same to you.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to welcome our guest still joining us this hour, trial attorney Krista Ramey. Krista, we've been watching along there. We saw her give a wave to the gallery there, trying to seem as if she's, an approachable, nice young lady and everything. Maybe a defense strategy there. Who knows? But, Krista, I want to talk about her bail situation here, because she has an interesting bail situation involved in this case. Now, we, of course, know that she got shot in this situation, but she lived. She had to have surgery, you know, went through her chest, broke some ribs, injured her liver and all that. Her bail was revoked because she physically could not perform the alcohol monitoring tests after her surgery from being shot. The alcohol monitoring was part of the bail decision there, which, you know, her not being able to, you know, blow hard into the breathalyzer makes sense after you've had such trauma to your chest. But is it common for health limitations to collide with bail conditions like this? Is that something that you've seen before, that you heard about?
I haven't, but it does make sense. I mean, you know, when you break a rib, they actually have you training on how to, you know, you have to blow so you can, you know, keep your lung capacity up, because otherwise there's great risks of like getting fluid in your lungs and lungs collapsing. So, you know, there is a real risk for shallow breathing and all of this. It's very difficult to perform the task, but it seems to me that there could have been other ways that she could have complied that don't have to do with blowing into a breathalyzer to comply with the drug or alcohol portion of the bail monitoring. So it's confusing to me that there couldn't have been a solution to that made, given the circumstances of that, you know, of her particular case.
Right, that was, you know, my question too. I was like, is there any other way they could draw blood, do a different sort of test? But that was their decision. Last hour, Krista, we of course talked about North Andover Police Department not using these, you know, the body cams. So we don't have any hard video evidence of actually what went down. It's her word against the other officers that were involved word. When it comes to a court of law, how does a court typically evaluate a case like this, where there's these serious allegations, these serious competing narratives going against each other, but no hard video evidence? Are they just going to decide based upon who argues the best? Is that how this goes?
Well, you know, before we had body cams and all of the video, you know, evidence that we have now and all the electronic evidence we have now, convictions were made all the time. You know, I guess, Cody, just not to be light about it, but, you know, it can be done with circumstantial evidence. I think that jurors expect to have better evidence now, just because that's the nature of, you know, modern society and modern trials, is that we have, you know, there's cameras, you know, ring cameras and surveillance cameras. You know, you can't get away from a camera in a major city. So I think that people have come to expect that they're going to be this type of evidence, but, you know, based upon physical evidence at the scene that has been collected, based upon testimony and you know, competing testimony sometimes can be corroborated, and, you know, how people present in court, you know, what their demeanor is. Jurors weigh credibility all the time, just like we do in our everyday lives. So I think that, you know, that a conviction can be had. If it is, I think that it was, you know, not surprising that the grand jury came back with some lesser charges here in this case because of that, all of these facts that we're talking about. But, you know, here it is. We'll see what happens. I guess in February, did the judge set the trial? So
yeah, Kristen, what I'm hearing you say there is, you know, there was a time that existed before we had all this fancy technology. That's the bow I took away from this. Krista Ramey's sticking around for the rest of this hour. Before we hit a break, a manhunt is underway this morning for a Virginia high school football coach. Virginia State Police say 46-year-old Travis Turner is on the run and has been missing since Thursday. He's wanted on 5 counts of child pornography and 5 counts of using a computer to solicit a minor. Search and rescue teams are using helicopters, drones, and K-9s to try and locate Travis Turner. They went to his home to interview him last week, but he was gone. And on Monday, police obtained warrants for Turner's arrest. Coach Turner led Union High School to an undefeated season before his disappearance, and without him, the team is still playing for that state championship. And of course, we will continue to follow this developing story as we get information into our newsroom. All right, coming up, we still shift to Michigan for sentencing in the case against Ricardo Castillo. You don't want to miss that. Stick around.
You think you deserve to die?
My goal is to make sure that you remember me for the rest of your life.
Oh my God.
Interview with a Killer. Marathon starting Friday, 5/4 Central. Only on Court TV.
Live on ION, 8 teams, 2 divisions, 1 chance to shine.
I'm that boss. Talking that slick might get you crushed.
Who will own the fort? Watch the Elevance Health Women's Fort Myers Tip-Off starting Friday at 11 on ION.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Cody Thomas, and we're heading back to Kent County, Michigan for the sentencing of Ricardo Castillo. Castillo, a 25-year-old former Marine recruiter, is being sentenced after pleading no contest to charges related to a 2024 home invasion. Prosecutors say Castillo entered the Plainfield Township home with the intent of killing everyone inside the house. Castillo first entered the master bedroom, but then left without doing anything because he wanted to find a, quote, easier target. Just very chilling words there. Castillo then went into a child's bedroom. He told detectives that he planned to kill the 11-year-old girl who was in there and then have sex with her dead body. Now, thankfully, the child survived the knife attack, but let's head right back into that hearing. The stepfather of the victim presents his victim impact statement.
Nerves and emotions going on, but I know behind me there's a host of people that are coming in and love. Grandparents, friends of the family that are here that have all been impacted in very unique ways that aren't up here this morning, but come to show their love and support. And for us, that is a win, and I'm going to talk and share on and our experience during this. You know, looking at this, and at the time, unimaginable, to the point that it almost didn't seem real until you live with it and experience it and see it and taste it and smell it, and the true horror that comes from it. I've worked with a lot of Marines, hundreds of Marines, on their mental health and alcoholism and different factors, and I've never seen somebody highly trained, willing to kill, willing to rape, and such horror. And I know the creed, always faithful, semper fi. This was a matter of not being, not just not faithful, but this is a matter of not somebody that attempted to protect both foreign and domestic, but actually became the terrorist. And that's what we've seen in our family, an act of terrorism within Rockford, as Dan shared, within the community, the ripple effect that it's had on the family, and just the toll it's taken, and seeing those questions that an adult, it's hard to comprehend, but a young girl asking questions like, what does that mean when somebody like tries to rape, or these different things that come out. And we've had, thank God, an opportunity to go to the gym and live life together and do different things like that. And the other day, it really hit me as she took off her jacket and was working out, and you could see the puncture wounds in her neck right here, missed her carotid artery. That's somebody who's trained, trying to kill, not somebody who's just intoxicated and winds up in a house and seeks somebody to destroy and do this act of terrorism. And to see all those things, but to also experience her resilience and her toughness in all of this. It doesn't take away what happened. God, it doesn't take away what happened. And I know this was and the things and the dynamics that we're facing right now, but there is a lot of things to consider that are the to-comes. I know Dan spoke about the flashbacks and the things he had to do in his family, and what our family, brothers, sisters, little ones, and things to come. You know, God willing, someday she gets married. She walks down the aisle and has a beautiful dress on, and you see all these wounds and these questions and different things. And it's not about what it looks like. It's about what happened. And the act of terrorism isn't just the stabbing and the ill will towards another life. It's, to me, more the intent of trying to take something so precious, the intimacy from a child's in a family, and everything that comes with it. I thank you for giving me this time to come up and speak. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I believe that's everybody that wants statement in, so that the defendant hears that. If your honor is okay with that at this time?
Yes.
First, I will start with how this crime impacted me at school. Because I was stabbed, I was not able to participate in PE class, and I wasn't able to join my friends in gym. I watched my friends play, and I couldn't join them. I couldn't throw a football, I couldn't lift my arm, or even do a sit-up in gym. In class, I felt embarrassed. I knew my friends knew what happened to me. It was on the news. My teachers knew, and even my principal. Kids in younger grades and my classmates. These people, knowing that I was stabbed, really affected me. I felt embarrassed and sad. I was scared that they were talking about me behind my back. I didn't like everyone knowing what happened. My classmates saw my scars and asked me about them too. I was nervous to say what happened to me. After I got out of the hospital, I felt relief and calm. I wanted to go outside and play, but I couldn't. I love climbing trees, riding my bike, and being active, but I couldn't do any of that. I couldn't do anything like that all summer. My wounds hurt for a long time. In the hospital, I remember feeling a lot of burning pain and stinging pain. After the hospital, I remember my wounds aching for a long time. I had to take medicine. This crime has affected me mentally too. I go to counseling and talk about what happened to me. After the crime, I had bad visions of looking out my bedroom window and seeing a man running towards me with a knife, wanting to hurt me. I remember having bad nightmares too. I felt very scared and unsafe. I didn't want to fall asleep. I didn't want to be alone, so my mom slept next to me. The night this happened, I remember being in a lot of pain on the floor. I remember seeing all my blood everywhere. I remember feeling warm running down my body from the blood. I remember the smell of it. I can still feel the sting of the pain. I remember being very scared and not understanding why this happened to me. I was terrified. I never would have guessed an innocent sleepover would have left me in the hospital with bad injuries. I was shivering and freezing that whole night, and in the ambulance, I remember the EMT telling me over and over to not fall asleep. I felt nauseous from all the blood everywhere. I looked down and saw my injuries and couldn't believe it. I was so scared. While I was at the hospital, I had a lot of uncomfortable IVs in my arms. They stung really bad. My stitches were very painful, and moving was hard. Even eating was hard. Last, Your Honor, I do not want this to happen to another girl. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did and have gone through. Please keep this man in prison. I'm asking for the maximum time in prison. This crime left me shook, frightened, horrified for my life, and afraid. Thank you for letting me operate.
Thank you.
All right, let me bring in my guest this hour, trial attorneys Krista Ramian joining us, Marlo Greer. And Marlo, I want to begin with you since you're just joining us. I don't even know where to begin here with this horrific case. I mean, I just want to get your general thoughts on it. You're dealing with a military man, no criminal history, no military disciplinary actions, and then something as nightmarish as this happens. Just walk me through your thoughts as you're hearing this. I mean, we heard the stepfather say that he signed this oath to, you know, protect the country from terrorism, yet he became the terrorist. Give me your thoughts.
I felt that was a very good statement from the father, but I think you said, you know, you don't know where to start. And in these cases, I think the place to start is with the victim, and listening to her impact statement was, for lack of a better word, impactful, right? I mean, we really realized that she is only 11 years old. She talked about school, and she talked about the fear that she was facing and the embarrassment that she was facing. She's not the one that committed this crime. And you often see this with victims of sex abuse where they are embarrassed. And thankfully, he did not get to where he ultimately wanted to go in this case, but she still felt that embarrassment and internalized it. And that's going to be something that she is going to feel forever. And it's just so horrific.
And Krista, that's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you about. What do you make of the statement on behalf of the victim? As Marlo was saying, she has to deal with this forever. This is a child. This is an 11-year-old that has visions of this man coming at her with a knife, stabbed in the neck, but yet, you know, she's processing all these emotions and these feelings. She's feeling embarrassed around her friends because they're asking about this horrific event. What do you make of that impact statement on behalf of the victim?
The fact that she could even write it is incredible. I represent, Cody, people that have been traumatized like this, childhood sex abuse survivors. And, what she went through now ultimately was not sexually abused, thank God, and ultimately survived these attacks. But, from just a trauma perspective, the fact that she could pull herself together to write this statement is just remarkable, to be able to tell the court what she was experiencing. And that, she has classmates now that bully her. I mean, that's just unbelievable. So this is like a continued torment for her because it was publicized, because it was such a well-known thing that happened in the Grand Rapids area. It's something that she will have to live with. It's something that she is now known for. And you can't get rid of that. That's going to be a lifetime of therapy and re-traumatization when you have your own children later in life. It's something that she's going to have to live with forever.
Yeah, and we've all grown up, been through middle school, 11 years old. What are you, 5th, 6th grade? You know how nasty kids can be, and then they're being nasty about this tragedy here. Marlo, I want to ask you, as far as the assailant here, the defendant here, do you think the court considered mental health at all? Because, I mean, he was reported, he went in there and took his clothes off and did all this, and I wanted an easier target. He has no prior criminal history. Was mental health a factor here in your eyes?
I think we want mental health to be a factor here, and the one really impacts me as well is that I was born in Kent County in Grand Rapids, and Grand Rapids is it's a big town, but it's still a small town. And I think that really the judge is going to look at this as intoxication and is going to look at those factors as far as him getting undressed as premeditation as opposed to mental health.
All right, and Marlo, Krista, sticking around. I mean, this is, can't even begin to wrap my mind around this right here. But coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to keep it here in Michigan for the sentencing in this case against Ricardo Castillo as the defendant himself addresses the court.
Tell you, this is as big as it gets. This case, it's as scary as it gets. It's as horrific as it gets. And it puts all of us in a fear zone like no other.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Cody Thomas. We are still in Michigan this hour. Sentencing rolls on for Ricardo Castillo. The 25-year-old former Marine recruiter is set to learn his fate after pleading no contest to charges related to a 2024 home invasion, which included a knife attack on an 11-year-old girl. Let's get you back in the court now where we left off as the defendant himself addresses the court.
Find the words, but to be honest, I wanted to come from God. When I was incarcerated, there were so many feelings, so much regret, remorse. Just, I couldn't explain it. And sometimes I still can't explain it. I'm not trying to justify myself, I just want to ask for forgiveness, ma'am. And I want to look at you, but I would like to ask for forgiveness for the families. So if you don't mind, to be honest, from the bottom of my heart, I ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I can't imagine all the nightmares. I can't imagine anything that you have felt for the past 15 months. But I'm sorry. I'm truly from the bottom of my heart. I was a lost person. I have found God. And it made me realize how much I truly am lost. So I ask for forgiveness for all of you, for both families, for the whole community of Rockford. I ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All set? Okay. All right, well, Mr. Castillo, at this point, you are 25 years old, and you only have one prior misdemeanor on your record. And I know it's already been alluded to what happened in this particular case, which occurred back in June of last year, where you entered a home of people that you did not know. You got a knife from their kitchen, and then you went into their child's bedroom where you proceeded to remove your pants and underwear and stabbed a visiting child who did not live in the home. You stabbed her repeatedly. And then you passed out, apparently because you were drunk or on drugs or both. I really don't know. This case is disturbing on so many levels. It's disturbing that you would go into these people's home that you didn't know, that you would arm yourself in their home, that you would almost kill a child who was only trying to sleep over with her friend. Your attorney's comment that you believe the world was ending makes it even more disturbing, in my opinion, because that means that if you think the world is ending, then you decide to engage in this behavior, and that's how you want to behave because the world is ending. I don't get it. I don't know that is something that anyone could really understand. And Mr. Castillo, no matter what I sentence you to, it is obvious to me from the victims in this case, from their point of view, that there is no sentence that is long enough. Nothing I do, no matter if I go to the top of the guidelines, sentence you to 1,000,000 years, there's no sentence to them that's going to be long enough. What you engaged in was just what comes to mind is a real life horror movie or horror show where you're stabbing this child. It's just by the grace of God that she wasn't killed. But this is something that she's...
So we heard him speak to the court, wanting to ask for forgiveness. Do you buy it? I don't know if I do, but coming up, we'll see if the judge does, because she decides the fate of Ricardo Castillo. Stay right here on the other side of the break.
Live on Ion, 8 teams, 2 divisions, 1 chance to shine.
I'm that boss. Talking that slick might get you crossed.
Who will own the fort? Watch the Elevance Health Women's Fort Myers tip-off starting Friday at 11 on Ion.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage begins December 1st on Court TV.
this was a matter of not being, not just not faithful, but this is a matter of somebody that attempted to protect both foreign and domestic, but actually became the terrorist. And that's what we've seen in our family, an act of terrorism within Rockford, as Dan shared, within the community, the ripple effect that it's had on the family. And just the toll it's taken. The act of terrorism isn't just the stabbing and the ill will towards another life. It's, to me, more the intent of trying to take something so precious, the intimacy from a child.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm, of course, Cody Thomas. We're heading back to Kent County, Michigan for the sentencing of Ricardo Castillo. Now, Castillo, a 25-year-old former Marine recruiter, is being sentenced after pleading no contest to charges related to a 2024 home invasion involving the stabbing of an 11-year-old girl, but thankfully, the child survived the knife attack. Let's head into the hearing now as the judge delivers the sentence for Ricardo Castillo.
For the rest of her life. Her parents are going to have to live with this for the rest of their life. Her friend who invited her to sleep over has to live with this as well. So there's just this cascade of this domino effect of your actions on this particular occasion, which interrupted and probably in some respects ruined the peace of mind of this child, of her friend, of this family whose home you invaded, as well as the community at large. This act, or these actions, there's not really one act, it's several acts that all build up to what resulted in this case that you're here to be sentenced for today. I appreciate the victim's comments. I appreciate Mr. Timmer's restraint in not engaging in deadly force, which, as he stated, would have been within his purview to do. I appreciate the comments of this victim that you stabbed, of her stepfather, who's also eloquently explained the effect that this case has had on his stepdaughter, which, again, I don't even know how you put any of these things into words, because it's just inexplicable, it's tragic. And having said all of that, Mr. Castillo, your guidelines for the assault with intent to murder are 135 to 225 months. For the home invasion, they're 51 to 85 months. And for the criminal sexual conduct second degree, they're 7 to 23 months. What I am going to do is sentence you at the top of the guidelines. I don't believe sentencing you at the bottom of the guidelines is appropriate, nor do I believe that throwing you in prison and throwing away the key is necessarily the correct approach either, given the fact that you are only 25 years old. So because of all of that, what I am going to do is sentence you to 225 months to 40 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections for the assault with intent to murder charge, 7 to 20 years for the home invasion first, and for the criminal sexual conduct second degree, I'm sentencing you to 1.5 to 5 years, and there's also requirements that you comply with the Sex Offender Registration Act with respect to that charge. You will receive credit for 530 days that you've already served. These sentences will run concurrently with each other. I'm ordering restitution. I didn't get a request or amount of restitution, but in the event that there is some requested, I'm ordering $0 to both families involved in this case. And should there be a restitution hearing where there's restitution involved, then I'll make that determination at that time. There's also a $60 DNA fee, $204 state minimum cost, $130 crime victim rights assessment, $1,000 in court costs that you'll be responsible for. And Mr. Castillo, you do have 42 days to appeal your sentence. And if you'd like a court-appointed attorney to represent you in an appeal, you have 42 days to make that request. And I do hope that this provides just another block or another stepping stone towards healing for the community and for these victims, and you too, Mr. Castillo. All right, thank you. No, it isn't. You're well set. Thank you.
God bless everybody.
All right, thank you.
All right, still with us, trial attorneys Krista Ramey and Marlo Greer. Krista, I want to start with you. And before we talk about the actual sentencing, I want to talk about him addressing the court. Mr. Castillo here, 25 years old, wants to ask for forgiveness, talking about so many feelings while he's behind bars, saying sorry, saying he's found God, telling people, I'm lost. Krista, I'm lost. What did you make about his statement there?
Cody, how many times do people find Jesus right at the time of sentencing? I mean, I know a lot about this area as well. I went to school at Grand Valley State University in this area. My folks are from here, Grand Rapids. This is a very religious community. There are more churches in this town, both Catholic and Protestant Christian Reformed, than I've ever seen in any community. That came across to me as phony baloney. I am sorry. I did not, that getting down and getting on his knees, I did not buy it. I did not think it was credible. And I don't think if you're going to have a client do that, it is advisable to allow them to do that because it doesn't seem real. And you have to, when you're talking to a family that you just did that to, you better come at it in a very authentic way. And this young man did not do that.
Marla, let's take a listen to a little bit of the statement on behalf of the victim. Again, just to remind our viewers and get another listen here real quick. Let's take a listen.
Your Honor, my name is... First, I will start with how this crime impacted me at school. In class, I felt embarrassed. I knew my friends knew what happened to me. It was on the news. My teachers knew, and even my principal. Kids in younger grades and my classmates. These people, knowing that I was stabbed, really affected me. I wanted to go outside and play, but I couldn't. I love climbing trees, riding my bike, and being active, but I couldn't do any of that. The night this happened, I remember being in a lot of pain on the floor. I remember seeing all my blood everywhere. I never would have guessed an innocent sleepover would have left me in the hospital with bad injuries. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did and have gone through. Please keep this man in prison. I'm asking for the maximum time in prison. This crime left me shook, frightened, horrified for my life, and afraid. Thank you for letting me share with you what happened.
Now, Marla, we sit there and listen to the powerful, the emotional impact behind that statement, but yet we heard the judge there say during sentencing, she said, throwing away the key isn't appropriate because Mr. Castillo is 25. I don't know how I feel about that, Marlo. If that was my daughter, if I had a daughter in that situation, I'd want this man under the jail. What do you make of that?
I am certain that that is what they thought, especially, like you said, when he dropped to his knees. When he turned around and addressed the family, I actually thought, oh, smart, because his attorneys told him to do that. Obviously, his attorneys did not tell him to drop to his knees. The one thing that I think will comfort the family is that she did sentence him at the top of the guidelines. However, she did give him a little bit of a break by making those sentences concurrent as opposed to consecutive, because that is what she could have done. So instead of having it served all at the same time, she could have stacked them up so that the key was thrown away. I don't know that she was very swayed by his statement at all. But what else is he going to say other than I'm sorry? And, I agree there are a lot of people that say that they have found God. And if he has truly become a better person and is going to become a better person over the next 18 to 40 years, then that's great. And he can be rehabilitated and put back into the community. But at this point, I think because of the age of the child, that's just too high. Emotions are too high to even consider that at this point. And so I think it was a good thing that the judge did sentence him at the top of the guidelines.
And Marla, you touched on it there, talking about, maybe if he does become better, you get rehabilitated and tossed back into the community, maybe becoming a productive member of society. Don't know if that'll happen, but Krista, my question kind of revolves around that because we often see the debate when it comes to things like this, the debate between rehab versus punishment. And in a case like this, where, you know, as bad as it is, his defense, you know, could more or less say something, well, you know, this is so heinous, this is so horrific, but, you know, maybe he was just having an episode, no one died. Is there any sort of argument as far as, you know, we talked about mental health, is there any sort of argument about mental health rehabilitation that could be made, or when it comes to a crime this heinous, is it all just kind of in the same pot?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, you know, what is the reasons for this? Is it because he's a sociopath or is it because he's a combat veteran? I don't know if he served in combat, by the way. I'm just saying because I'm throwing that out there because he's a Marine. But I know that, you know, members of our military do experience some, you know, and see some horrific things, and it does, you know, impact their mental health when they come home and they need a lot of help at times. And sometimes we're not very good at it as a society in giving that help to them. But, you know, what was the cause here? I don't know that we know this in this particular case, but I think that, you know, there is attention to both, and that is how it should be. His mental health should be a part of his, you know, the minimum of 18, almost 19 years he'll be in prison versus also, he is being punished, and you know he's going to have to be a registered sex offender, but he's going to be a relatively young person when he comes out if he does the work and is not in for the full 40 years. So I think that there is work for him to do, and it should be done.
Krista, real quickly here, just real yes or no question: was this the appropriate sentence in your eyes of the legal system?
I think it was.
And Marlo, same question to you. Was this appropriate the way you see it, how it all played out? Do you think this was the appropriate sentence for Mr. Castillo here?
If it were me, I would have run them consecutive.
Well, there you have it. Two of our better minds here, better minds than me. Goodbye to Krista Ramey and Marlo Greer. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you guys are safe and that family is great and that you eat a whole bunch of good food, because I know I am. That does it for Court TV Live, everyone, and a big happy Thanksgiving to you and yours as well. Now, coming up, corrupt crimes with a focus on a homegrown terrorism group, which some are calling the largest terror plot since 9/11. You don't want to miss that. Keep it right here on Court TV.